either Shark Tank's getting the ownership percentage wrong, which is what I think is actually occurring, and it should be actually closer to 4.6, which maybe we're splitting hairs here, but it's always fun to point out when Shark Tank gets something wrong. All right, thanks for joining me for another Shark Tank React. Today, we're gonna dive in and listen to Brightwheel as they pitch their innovative startup idea around helping daycares better manage their businesses and engage and interact with parents. Let's dive in.
Hi Sharks, my name is Dave Basson. I'm the founder and CEO of Brightwheel, and I'm here seeking a $400,000 investment for a 4% equity stake in my company.
So here's the thing I've noticed with the Sharks. Anytime there's a valuation over I don't know, a couple million, they just kind of roll their eyes like, oh boy, this is just outside of what we're gonna do. And look, I think it makes sense for Damon to be a little frustrated by, super high valuations, because he doesn't back a lot of really tech-enabled companies. That's really not his expertise. And, the stuff he is really good at and has done well with is more consumer-oriented, which tends to have a much, much lower valuation. So makes sense. But I just always chuckle whenever the entrepreneurs come out with these super high valuations, because in my world, these valuations, $400,000 for 4%, I mean, that's implying a $9.6 million valuation. I mean, it depends how much traction they have, but it doesn't sound that expensive to me. It kind of sounds in the ballpark of what I do every day, if not more. I've paid a lot more for businesses that have very little traction, but they also have a lot of upside, and because they operate in very large markets and they have very clear moats and so on and so forth. So interesting, how different investors can think about valuation based on their own experience and expertise.
For preschools, daycares, and families. And we are completely revolutionizing early education. Now, I believe all of us are parents here, and I want to ask, when you come home after a long day and you ask your kids, what did you learn in school today? Does this sound familiar?
I did everything. I did. I want to tell you.
You don't want to tell me? I don't know.
This is exactly what happens when I ask my kids. They're like, oh.
You've been apart from your little human being for 6, 8, 10 hours a day, and that is all you get. You want to be a part of their day. You want to add to their learning once you come home, and you can't. And it's gut-wrenching. And on the other side, on the school side, is no better. In addition to actually educating our kids, teachers are managing a ton of paperwork. Let's face it, they're actually managing parents. And on top of that, they're even running a business. The system is broken, and Brightwheel is the solution. So let's jump in and take a look at how Brightwheel works. So with Brightwheel, teachers can easily check kids in from the mobile app. They can log activities and assessments during the day. They can send quick updates. And they can even manage their business all in one place. And we're just seeing an amazing amount of photos every single day on Brightwheel. And this is the reason. You take it, you tag it, and you are absolutely done. And now we're gonna look at the teacher app. So this is the teacher's room, and we're gonna click on activities at the bottom here. And this is all being done on paper today. And so we've taken it and combined it and made it super fast and super easy. And so we're gonna click on nap here. And then we're gonna tag 3 kids that just went down for a nap. And the key about Brightwheel is that we're saving teachers time. You actually have measurably more time with kids every single day. And now we're gonna flip over real quick to the parent experience. So let's jump to the mobile app. This is actually my little girl, Serena, and this is her day. And as you can see, I get a sense of not only what she's doing, but what she's learning. And so when I come home, I can actually have a conversation with her about it. My connection with my little girl is so much deeper because of Brightwheel. And by the way, in the middle of a pretty tough day, it doesn't hurt to get a photo like this. Sharks, this is a unique opportunity to build a massive business that has a massive impact on people's everyday lives, and that's something that we hear every day. So I hope you'll join Serena and our team in bringing Brightwheel to every preschool, every daycare, and every family across the globe.
Okay, so tech-enabled service makes a ton of sense. Love the fact that they're building a platform that really helps small business operators do a better job managing their businesses and communicating with parents. I have to imagine a daycare provider that is taking pictures and putting in all this information on a regular basis and sending that off to the parents is going to be able to retain their children in their business a lot more effectively than somebody that just like, you know, they don't have that interaction. And so like, I think that's pretty interesting. My big question is like, how often are care providers like able to like constantly be taking pictures of all the kids and updating everything in the app? And maybe they do, but like when my kids went to preschool, I don't remember them really, you know, keeping track of like, oh yeah, we gave your child a banana and oatmeal, right? And then they took a nap, and then they did this, and then they did that, because they've got so many kids that they're trying to manage and teach and so forth. So I don't know, maybe it is solving like a bunch of big pain points. I wish maybe there was time for him to flesh out the rest of the business, because if it also includes like a lot of other tools around helping like manage payments and children, enrollees, and like all of that stuff, that actually like would be pretty interesting. My gut tells me that either they do that or they plan on offering that and including that over time, which I think would be kind of crucial to making this business like actually work and actually have the potential to grow into something big.
How much am I paying for it?
Right now, you're paying nothing. Brightwheel's free today. When we have our premium product, you will be paying a monthly fee for that.
The parent will pay or I'll pay?
You will pay as the administrator or the owner.
And will the parent ever pay anything?
Not today. We're building a platform. We see a lot of opportunity to add value to parents down the road.
Except you can't advertise on that platform.
Correct, and we have no intention to advertise.
Wait, you can advertise to the parents all you want.
We don't want to. We think there's a ton
You
of ways
have
that
a
you
very
can.
hard time with that model.
No way.
No, and we have no intention to. So let me walk you through what Brightwheels look like. So
Typical Silicon Valley, let's just dump ads on him.
How many schools did you get signed
Yeah, so we
up?
got 10 schools in the pilot with literally no product. And so we worked with them, we listened to them, we understood their needs. In June of this year, we launched publicly as Brightwheel. We went from 10, and then now we have 2,500 schools. We're in every state across the country.
Wow.
So how are you going to monetize it?
First, I just want to say that when you look at other industries, all of these industries have really great dedicated software that's provided by very large companies. This is a massive market that doesn't have that. And so that's where we see ourselves fitting in.
Well, a lot of that has to do with the fact that they don't have money because they're very much small proprietors.
But they do have budget.
Well, they're just mismanaged. I've got a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 2-week-old, and I pull my hair out sometimes looking at how the preschools are managed
And
as a
they-
business.
right.
even.
I offered to write software for my kids' preschool.
And that's why they love it, because we take all that off their hands so they have more time with kids.
You're doing so many things at once that makes it a little harder to pitch this.
Yeah.
That may be where the opportunity lies too, right? You're doing something for schools, something for parents, something for teachers as well.
Right. We're in everything from 4-person in-home daycares. Even a lot of people are actually using us with nannies, so single person, all the way up to elite chain of preschools. So we're going to offer at the low price point around $40 per month for a really small in-home daycare, and that scales up to $200 in terms of
So the top price is 200, and that
Right.
could be 50 kids, right?
There's some very large centers, including ones that we're in. We're in centers with several hundred children. So
That's still 200 bucks?
yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he's thinking that they're going to charge somewhere between $40 and $200. So let's say like kind of an average probably comes out to like $50 a month. So like $600 per daycare per year. That feels kind of low. I mean, what does it cost to acquire one of these customers? Now today they're getting a lot of people that are signing up for free, which is great. But I don't know, like, you know, if you think about what does it cost to get somebody to fully implement software into their business and to acquire that customer, I mean, usually like companies are paying at least a couple $100, and so maybe sometimes even more. So I don't know, like $600 a month feels pretty low. And then you're also dealing with small businesses, and these small businesses, like these daycares, like some are gonna pop up and then go out of business, right? So you're gonna have a lot of churn, as we call it in the industry. And that's pretty typical for selling to small businesses. And these are like really small businesses with really tight budgets. So, you know, it's kind of like, I don't know. I feel like you're going to have a lot of churn, and it's going to be kind of expensive to get in front of these customers. So they really need to have a very, very efficient customer acquisition model in order for this thing to work.
Based on the pilot, we raised a seed round of $2.2 million at an $8.2 million valuation.
Besides money, what do you want the shark to contribute to this, to your venture?
We're taking on big challenges now. We're looking to scale. We're looking to build a global brand. I'm not just here for money. I'm not just here for PR. I'm here for the partnership possibilities of bringing on sharks onto our team and the value that adds. We want to be the brand of early education. So it's $1 million next year, $6 million the year after that. And
Oh my goodness. If he can actually hit those numbers, I will be super impressed. Like the number of companies that can really go from like wherever they're at today, which is, well, they're at 0, go from 0 to $1 million in a year, very small, and then to go from 0 to 6, and then 6 to 20, like that is aggressive. That is super fast growth. Now, could it happen? Totally could happen. But let's place it with some numbers. So today he's got 2,500 schools. Let's assume that he implements like tomorrow his pricing scheme. He's gonna be lucky if he gets like a 10% conversion rate from the free accounts to the paid accounts. And that's just based on my experience having invested in a lot of different platforms, including some of the best like Spotify, at getting people to convert from free accounts to paid accounts, right? I mean, even Spotify, like who was largely considered like one of the most successful at doing this, was only converting 15 to 20% at their prime from free to paid. So big question mark of like how many of this 2,500 he'll be able to convert. But let's give him benefit of the doubt and say it's about 10%. That means if he gets 10% and he's charging each of them about $600, that puts him at about $150,000 in annualized recurring revenue. You know, he mentioned that he's adding 40 to 60 schools a day right now. So if he's adding 40 to 60 schools a day, we multiply that by 365. That would mean at the end of 1 year, he'd be at about 14,600 schools. 14,600 schools, again, times that 10%. That's 1,460 schools. That would put him at $876,000. So doable, definitely very doable to get to that $1 million. But then here's the rub. The rub is, how big is this market really in total? So I went online and I just did a quick search just to see how many daycares are out there. And Statistica states that they believe that there's about 856,000 daycares. If he got 10% of that market, this is a $52 million business. If he got 100% of the market, then it's about a $520 million business. But keep in mind, you're gonna have a lot of churn in that market. And he's not gonna get the full market. It's just not gonna happen. I mean, realistically, I think he could hope for somewhere between 10 and 20% of the market, which means that like this business really has like an upper limit of generating somewhere between 50 and $100 million in revenue. That's not bad, right? It's not the biggest market. And it also depends on like what kind of other businesses operate in that space that he'd have to compete against. So we don't even know about that. And guaranteed, if he starts to really see a ramp from 1 to 6 to 20, there will be a lot of other businesses that enter the space because frankly, he hasn't built anything all that complex and hard to do. That being said, let's say that like he does get to $52 million in revenue and we apply, you know, like a 6x revenue multiple to this business. That would mean that he's going to be worth roughly $300 million. Well, if the sharks are able to invest at roughly a $10 million valuation, that could actually be a pretty interesting outcome, around 60x. If the sharks are able to invest at roughly a $10 million valuation, which is what he is pitching, and then they could sell for $300 million in the future, that would actually be a very compelling outcome, right? They would generate like 30x, assuming that he didn't have to raise any more money, which he is definitely going to have to do, like no question. But still, like that could get you probably north of 10 to 20x return, which would be compelling for this investment. So anyways, I think it's got potential. I think it would be a little tricky for a lot of funds because the ultimate outcome is not that big. Don't get me wrong, like, is good, but if you're running a venture fund that's a $100 million fund, you know, putting in $400K and getting $8 million back is not gonna really move the needle on your fund. So again, like you'd have to be coming in and investing like $5 million, right? You put in $5 million, you 20x that, like that's $100 million. That starts to become a little more interesting, a little more compelling, right? So anyways, so those are the things that I'm kind of thinking about. I think for the right fund and the right size of investor, this investment could make sense, but it doesn't feel like a super big market. And my gut is that he is probably assuming a lot more people are going to upgrade to his premium version than I think are actually going to. And he's not fully accounting for the massive amount of churn that he's probably going to experience because like it's so easy to open up a daycare, right? Like you could just start letting people come over and you'll watch their kids, right? And they pay you on Venmo or whatever. And then, you get sick and you stop doing it and you shut down, right? There's going to be so much of that happening in this business. And it's going to be really costly, in my opinion, to acquire customers, and really costly when they leave to go find someone to replace them. Anyways, let's see what the sharks think.
I believe it. Okay, look, I'll make you an offer. I'll give you $400,000, but I want 10%. I just bring too much.
Kevin, I appreciate that offer. I really do. And the fact that you want to be a part of this, more than the number of the equity.
4%? How can, like,
I understand.
It's like...
No, and look, even your background, you sold an education company. That is valuable. What is challenging for me is our investors had my back
I trust you on that, but how do I get
But you knew that coming in.
I think you're going to have that same frustration.
And, you knew you'd have to negotiate, right?
Yeah.
I warn you not to promise like we're never going to advertise, etc., because I do think you could add a lot of value with offers, coupons. People in this demographic actually want good products to be put in front of them, and so I think that could be one fun channel. I want to make you an offer, so I'd like to give you the $400K you're seeking, but at the $8.2 million valuation of the last round. We give you the $400K and we're off to the races.
All right, this is a pretty common thing. Like, it does not surprise me at all that he'd come in and say, yeah, we'll do the deal, but at the same valuation as the last round. What's not entirely clear to me is what the valuation was on the last round. Was it 1.2 million on top of 8.2, or was it 1.2 million included in the 8.2, which would mean the pre-money valuation was actually 7 million. Now, it ultimately doesn't matter, because if he wants just a flat round valuation, the 8.2 becomes the new pre-money valuation at which Chris would invest. Here is where Shark Tank gets it wrong with their ownership percentages. They're saying that his ownership percentage would be 4.85, assuming that his 400,000 would be included in this 8.2 million on a post-money basis. If what I said is true, that they raised at 7 million, then they raised 1.2 on top of that. That leaves you with 8.2. If Chris comes in and puts his $400,000 in on 8.2 as a post money, then that actually pushes the valuation back down to 7.8, which would actually be a down round for his prior investors. So either Shark Tank's getting the ownership percentage wrong, which is what I think is actually occurring, and it should be actually closer to 4.6, which maybe we're splitting hairs here, but it's always fun to point out when Shark Tank gets something wrong. Or he is proposing a down round, which I don't think Chris is doing. He's sophisticated enough to know, like, 8.2 is the pre-money. I'm going to put my 400K on top of that. Valuation should actually be on a post-money basis, 4.6.
First of all, that is an amazing offer. Do you have any desire to team up with other sharks?
So if I'm looking at the other sharks and I'm going to let them into my deal, I have to be convinced that the piece of the deal I have left is going to be worth more as a result of them being here.
Yeah.
And with your company, I'm not convinced of that. No. If we're selling T-shirts,
Man, he just...
You tell me, what do you think you need from the rest of the line here?
Are you serious? Are you really that cool?
So arrogant. Okay. I gotta tell this story. This is such a great story. So, Chris Sacca is like one of the best early stage seed-based investors of all time. He had a seed fund called Lowercase Capital. You can look it up. He placed seed bets into a ton of super successful companies like Uber and Twitter, and those investments allowed him to ultimately become a billionaire. Right? The number of VCs that have become billionaires based purely on their investments is a very, very, very low number. Now, there are a lot of very wealthy VCs, but very few that are billionaires. Chris Sacca is one of them, and probably like his fund, Lowercase Capital, has like in the pantheon of venture returns, like maybe the best returns of all time, or very near the top of that, because it was a really small fund. I think it was only like 15 million bucks. So like, he is a big deal when it comes to Silicon Valley. Like, people know who Chris Sacca is. But the story that's really funny, and to Mark's point, like outside of Silicon Valley, nobody knows of him, was illustrated in the story where he went to go see Hamilton in New York City. Back when Hamilton was like the big deal, and it was super hard to get tickets, and they were super expensive and all these things. So anyways, he bought tickets, scalped tickets. Turns out they were fraudulent tickets. So he shows up to the theater to go see Hamilton, and he's got these tickets, and he's like, hey, we'd like to be taken to our seat. And the usher's like, I'm sorry, these are forged tickets. I can't let you in. And like Chris, as you can tell, like has a bit of an ego, and he's like, no, but like let me in. And the guy's like, I'm sorry, these are fraudulent tickets. I can't let you in. And Chris, full stop, is like, but don't you know who I am? And the usher is like, yeah, actually, I have no clue who you are. And honestly, even if I did, these are fraudulent tickets and I can't let you in. So like, clearly like Chris has a very big ego, not super well known out of Silicon Valley, but now you know he is a big deal. And just like he knows it.
50
But hang
states
on,
already.
hang on. While the two ends of the tank are squabbling like chickens, I just want to point something out.
Yes.
The only shark that's ever had a multi-billion-dollar exit in your space is Mr. Wayne.
That
This
is
my space.
debatable if
I
it was
know
actually
exactly how
multi-billion.
to help you.
But
And I think,
anyways.
frankly, I bring a lot to the table on that. I'm not going to fight with Chris about whether he should be a loan or not. To get involved now, I have to compete with his deal. So I'm willing to match him because I have no choice. I like the deal. I really do.
The percentage isn't the issue. Because it's shuffling deck chairs on the Titanic. Either you're going to make it or you're not.
Right.
Right? And so whether it's at 8.2 or 10 million, that's not the issue.
He's making a good point. Like, Mark is basically saying, it doesn't matter if this is 8.2 or 10, right? Like, going back to my prior math, right? If the company sells for 300 million, is it going to make a huge difference if they bought in at 8.2 or they bought in at 10? Not really. I mean, they'll make a little bit more money, but not enough to, like, really miss out on doing the deal today. Like, it's more important to get the deal done if you're really a believer than to squabble about, like, a very small percentage difference between the two valuations.
Dave, when you're asking these guys in, are you willing to give up more equity for more money? And that's what I'm trying to figure out so they can even know how to position themselves.
I would consider it. We came in here with a concrete ask in terms of a budget. If it means getting more sharks and having more people at the table, then I would consider it.
I'll do it either way. I think partnering with Chris is smart, and obviously you see the value there, and I don't mind doing that. You may not think there's value. I'll leave that to him, or I'll leave it to you and say, I'll hit your number, 400K at the price that you asked.
At 4%.
At the 10 million value.
Yeah, because I have enough confidence that I add enough value that it will propel.
So you're willing to do the deal at 400,000
Either way,
for
but
4%.
I do, look, regardless of what he said about me, right? I see the value there because Silicon Valley is its own little world.
Yeah, like Uber operates in its
Right.
own little world, and
No, but
Twitter
wait a
operates in
second.
its own little world, and Instagram operates in its own little world. I've never been outside of San Francisco, I'm sorry.
So let me ask then, Chris. You know, Mark just asked if you'd be open to teaming up for a deal. Is that something you'd be open to? What if we do so at the valuation that Mark talked about, 300 from Mark and 300 from Chris? We get it done and we build this thing together.
We're paying more than the last guy's paid, huh?
Okay, so what he means by the 25% more, we should break that down. That's what I was saying earlier. He just confirmed that the pre-money on the last round was 7 million. So now he wants to raise at a $10 million post, 600K. So that means that the company would be worth 9.4 million pre, which is roughly 25% higher than that 7 million. But in reality, he also needs to include the 1.2 million that was raised because that was additional value on the business, right? And so the post money of that last round was 8.2 million. So really it's the delta between 8.2 and 9.4, which is not that big of a difference, but
Oh, don't do it to yourself.
We didn't have the products, we didn't have the brand, we didn't have this team in place.
You didn't have Shark Tank either. Don't do it to yourself.
anyways, what did you think? Tell me down in the comments. And be sure to check out some of my other Shark Tank reacts because I'm going to be coming out with a bunch more of these. And I think there's some really fun things that you can learn from them.